Hello everybody, today we are facing up a Big Beasts Nature deck up against a Deadly Control War deck. This is my Big Beast Nature deck, fairly similar to a lot of Big Beast Nature deck. The Underbrush Boar I love, it's just so great for keeping board control, especially since the nerf to the Vanguard Axewoman Underbrush Boar is my replacement for that. I would actually use it instead of it. Marshwalker, of course, Black Jag, some standard stuff. The Fey Flame Blade is really nice just to help take out the little guys, pop shields, take out poison creatures, all sorts of different things, and also build up favor. Canopy Barrage, just one of those, because every now and then you need a bit of a board, or a bit of a card clear, I guess I should say. One Ornery Goat, sometimes this can strategically be used. Most of the time it's just targeted immediately, but it also distracts your opponent. If they're going for your Ornery Goat, they're not going for something else. Lightning Strike is a nice big board clear. Take out something big, something small. It's not very expensive and does 8 damage. That's great. I've got a single Overgrown Rhino, just a nice big stat card at 4 mana, and a Wildfire ever since it's been buffed is really nice. I guess it's been kind of buffed and nerfed, but I like the way it's been buffed and nerfed. Deal 1 damage to each creature, which is great for popping bubbles and taking out anything with just a little bit of health, and then you get +1/1 and regen 1 to any wild creature, which is pretty much every card in this deck. 2 Blade Flies, just because for 4 mana you get 6/6 stats basically when you add them all out, and you divide them into 3 different attacks. So that's just nice. Avatar Nature, one of the best cards in the game for 5 mana, 5/5 stats, and a 1/1 plant each turn that heals you. Can't go wrong with that. The Jag Staff is a nice way to get creatures on the board and also clear creatures off their board. And for 5 mana, you actually get 6/6 plus 2/2. So you get a lot of damage out of that 5 mana. 2/2 for each of your attacks, and 3/3/3/3 for each of the Jaguars that get summoned. So that's just great. The green giants are really nice now that they've got that +1 more attack. It's just, it's a subtle thing, but it makes a difference. I actually swapped out my Pious Giants to the green giant since the buff. I've got one single hunt, just because usually you want to be having momentum in this game. If you don't have momentum, hunt's great for coming from behind or leveling off the playing field. But I don't want to stack my deck with them. 2 Charging Oryxes, just because these are finishers. These are great game finishers. They're also just a nice 7/7 stat card. Nothing wrong with that. Wild Hogs, great. 2/3 mana 1. Skeleton Heavy, great. 2/4 mana 2. I've actually swapped in 2 Mire Bloodworms, because having a little bit of frontline gives you a little bit of time to plan other things, such as potentially lining up a Wildfire, potentially getting an Ornery Goat out, a few other things like that. 2 Hunt Wardens, just because at 3 mana, that 3/4 stat is actually a lot harder to take out than a 4/3 stat. Doesn't seem like it should be, but it is surprisingly. And if you can get 2 whacks out of your card instead of just 1 whack, get 2 turns out of it instead of just 1, great. Last but not least, Dionysus the Bountiful. This is a game finisher as well. If the game does go into 9 mana, typically I'll have almost no cards by that point, because you have low mana cards and you've pretty much played everything. You may have a few left in your hand, and you drop Dionysus, then you get 7 additional cards, which you have space for because you pretty much used up all your cards, and deal 4 damage to everything, and then put 7 cards in your hand that each cost 1 mana. So that is actually the most awesome card. I love this card. This is the most fun card to play. Opposing me, we have a Deadly Control War deck. I am not the master of this, so I'm not going to talk about it a lot, but basically here's the cards. I'm going to show it to you. I've played it a few times. I'm not great with War at the moment, so this is what we're facing up against. I know that there are some powerful players that play. Actually, Mythic Aldous here, I think, was ranked 6 in the weekend tournament, so we're going up against him, and this is the deck he was playing. And I know that top tier players do play this deck, or a very similar deck to it, so I'm sure it's a great deck. I just don't know a lot about it, so I'm not going to talk about it that much. All right, let's jump into the game. So I always like to start with some low mana cards. 1, 2, 3 mana, great if I can get that sort of lineup, or a couple of 1/1s and then mana bag and just start really strong. But here I get lined up pretty nice. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hard to argue with that kind of start. that Enduring Shield is really it can be difficult if you're playing up against the Slayer deck. Slayer deck can continue to apply protection to their cards, and if they get it kind of set up right, man, it can be very, very difficult to beat. In this case, we are not playing against it. Slayer deck, we're playing against Onslaught. So that Enduring Shield is going to have a limited number of uses, but as you can see, it is problematic. So I'm deciding here that there's not really a good trade to be made. I'm just going to try to do a little damage to face, and this Mire Bloodworm, man, I don't see it used all that much in high-level play, but I kind of like it. I've just swapped it into my deck lately, and it just always seems to come in handy. I don't know why it is. It just always seems to come in handy. Just that little bit of protection, right? Just like that 4/1 with a burn. That's nice. So I got, 2 of those in my deck. Harvest Arcane. I'm not sure actually how you pronounce the name of that card, but that deadly card, which War loves to blitz against some big creature or something like that. In this case, it's not much not much he can take out that I'm really worried about him taking out. So I decided to just kind of fill the board up with all sorts of different targets. He doesn't have all that much damage on the board at the moment, so I'm kind of just planning to go for his face. That didn't work out too well. That's the problem with confused creatures. They have a mind of their own sometimes. Well, I'd like to supply some commentary here, but nothing comes to mind, so we'll just wait for the next turn to happen. Wait patiently and see what he does. He seems to be taking his time a little bit. There we go. -1 Bladefly, -2 Bladeflies, and that's okay. That's okay. They're put there to to distract. That Auric Rush is nice. Gives him almost board control at this point, and a nice little protected creature down. Those are good. The what are they called? Tavern Brawlers? No, Raid Revelers. I forget what the hell they're called. Raid Revelers, I think. So here I'm thinking about obviously taking out the deadly creature. That's just a big problem to have on the board. You know, if you leave that on the board for too long, and you're very limited in what you can play yourself, right? Because one of your good cards could be taken out easily, right? I don't have anything big to worry about at the moment, but later on, you know, those could become problems. So I always want to get those deadly creatures off the board. I'm sure that, for the most part, goes without saying. Yeah, he can take out my Ornery Goat here and lose absolutely nothing with his Raid Reveler, which is what I'm thinking he's going to do. And Tavern Brawler, basically the replacement for the Vanguard Axewoman. The Tavern Brawler basically took its place. It's now a 2 mana, 2/3, as it used to be a 1 mana, 2/2, I believe. So they just kind of swapped roles, giving War that nice blitzy 2 mana attack. And yeah, so at this point it's not looking overly great for me. That being said, there's a couple of 1/1s on the board. I mean, I can drop a Wildfire down here. I don't, necessarily get to buff anything, but I don't really have a lot of other options either. So, given the choice between nothing too good and nothing at all, I decided to drop the Wildfire. The thing is, if I drop the Wildfire now, chances are that a little bit later in the game I'm going to be wanting to drop things like my Charging Oryx and other things like that, which takes some more mana. So unless I happen to get a bunch of like a Bladefly or something like that, that Wildfire is probably not going to get too effectively used. So yeah, I decided to just drop Wildfire, clear the board down a little bit, and take some of his options off the table. And one of the most important things in Gods Unchained is to control the momentum of the game. And when your opponent starts to get more cards, they have way more moves each turn, and that helps them to control the momentum way, way easier. And it makes it, of course, way more difficult for you to come back from whatever situation you happen to be in. So here I'm looking at something like You know, the drain life could go 3 possible places. It goes to, I dare say, the worst of those possible places, leaving all 3 of his cards still on the table. I don't have a lot in my hand in the moment, but next turn I'm thinking to myself, I can mana bag and drop down the Charging Oryx, and that could be, you know, a bit helpful. Meanwhile, I've got the Hunt Warden on the table. None of his cards individually can take out the Hunt Warden. But with Onslaught, of course, he can Onslaught his Raid Reveler and take out my Hunt Warden, only losing 1 card. Luckily for me, he didn't have much to play with his remaining 4 mana, which is good because I was kind of a bit behind. That being said, the Green Giant really came up at a nice time in this particular game, right when I needed it. Well, I could have dropped the Charging Oryx as well, but I kind of like the look of the Green Giant. Don't have to use a mana bag or anything, and plus I'm thinking next turn I can overkill and basically wipe out whatever units he's got on the board, depending on, I suppose, what he plays. And so he's just kind of looking for some more cards here. I'm not sure what he's got in his hand, but apparently it wasn't anything too helpful. Which is good for me because I don't have a lot in my hand either. That being said, at mana 7, that Charging Oryx has been waiting around for a while. In retrospect, I actually should have hit the Amazon. What the hell's her name again? She would have done less damage to my Giant, but I just zoned out there for a minute, and you know, the Giant would have overkilled. It was, funnily enough, though, the Giant actually didn't overkill very well. I was thinking he'd knock out both cards, but most of that overkill damage went right to face, and that left me with unfortunately, that left me with what the hell's her name? I'm totally drawing a blank here. I should really know. Athenian Archer. Left him with Athenian Archer on the table, and then my Charging Oryx went right at it, which was basically the worst case scenario for that turn. It couldn't have gone much worse. So here I've got a few options. I can Jag Staff to knock down the Panther's shield, which is actually what I decided to do. There's a few options here. I could potentially use the Giant to hit the Tavern Brawler and also pop the shield, but I decide I'm going to get a creature on the board here. I'm going to pop his shield, and I'm going to do damage to hopefully some overkill damage here. Not quite as much as I could have hoped for, but you know what? I'm going to clear the board with the Canopy Barrage and just give him no options, right? Like I say, board control is just so important when you're playing gods. It's worth taking damage to your own god, with a relic attack or something like that. If you can maintain control of the board, you're usually gonna be the victor. So at this point, he's got 4 cards in his hand, but I'm not sure. I can't remember. I'm thinking he doesn't have any great options. That being said, I do have quite a lot of stats on the board at the moment. It's a good thing he didn't have a relic, because that Carnage Sweep would have wiped out everything. Still, he actually does a nice little play here, taking out most of my offense. That being said, still have a nice Charging Oryx, Jag Staff, and now I'm thinking, you know what, he's got 1 life left. Lambasting Wand basically cinches in a victory here. So might as well play it. Here I'm thinking, you know what, let's just get everything on the board. But at the same time, that Underbrush board can be helpful, in a current turn sort of scenario. Yep, not quite what he was looking for, not quite enough, not quite enough to defend there, and that's the game. Hope you guys have enjoyed it.